Athletes put their bodies, their minds, everything on the line for their university to win. But we must ask ourselves, at what point does it all become too much?
Who is there for these athletes? How many athletes feel safe to speak up and talk about their feelings? I can tell you now, not many.
This needs to be talked about. This is a serious issue.
College athletics is a job. This is a job that you are brought in and expected to perform day in and day out.
One study done back in 2021 by the British Journal of Sports Medicine showed that around 25% of collegiate athletes show signs of depression.
A captain and goalkeeper of the Stanford women's soccer team, has passed away at the age of 22.
Sarah Schultz was a star track and field athlete at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Loved ones said goodbye to the 21-year-old.
Robert Martin, a grad student and fifth-year goalie at Binghamton, who was on track to graduate in the spring, died by suicide on April 1st.
I'm Audra Weber. I am 50 years old. I played soccer at the University of Maryland at College Park in the early 90s. I would say my college experience was a positive one. I enjoyed playing soccer and going to class at Maryland, and I had very demanding and competitive coaches, which helped add to the experience. I ended up playing for Jill Ellis and April Heinrichs, who were members of the national team.
It's Rachel Krause. I'm 48 years old. I played college soccer at Ferrum College and Longwood University. After my freshman year at Ferrum College, I transferred to Longwood College and helped them start their women's college soccer program because it wasn't in existence prior, and ended up unfortunately getting a career-ending injury after my sophomore year with them. It's hard for me to find a place to go and talk to and find somebody who could help me get rid of those emotions of wanting to play the game after I was no longer able to. I had a lot of phone calls home to my friends, my family, and just had to find a way to get through that situation since there was really nowhere available for me to go.
I'm Brian McFarland. I'm 40 years old. I'm an IT director and I played soccer at Virginia Tech. I feel like sports throughout my life has had a lot of ups and downs, and as far as mentally trying to be tough and stuff, but my worst time was I was a junior in college. I was supposed to be the captain of the team and take over, and I got hurt first game of the year. Ended up having surgery on my ankle and never really got back to the way I was. So even when I came back from my senior year, I wasn't the player I was. I felt like I lost my identity. I felt like my buddies were all on the field and I was off. And that was probably my lowest time. And I had to figure out what I was going to do after soccer, and that was probably one of the toughest things I've ever had to do.
Cole McGinnis. I'm 19, UNC Asheville, and play baseball.
My name is Eric Hill. My age is 51. I played at Longwood College, and I played baseball. My spare time, my hobby, I'm actually director of player development for the Richmond Spiders baseball program, so I'm a Division I coach currently.
Mental health is important because I feel like it'll affect you on the field, but it can also affect you just as much off the field.
I did, for sure, my personal experience. Multiple teammates while at Longwood. I would say I recall 3 for sure that struggled with mental health, and that was a topic in the early 90s we just didn't talk about.
So I broke my leg playing another sport, and then during baseball season I was out for a little bit, and with me coming back from rehab and everything, I was very hesitant on pushing off of my left leg. With being the catcher, I kind of use my legs all the time and shifting back and forth, so I was kind of hesitant towards it, and it took a mental toll on me because it took me about 3 to 4 months completely for me to be better with it, so I wasn't hesitant off of it. Other than that, mental health is big with anything mentally or physically on the field. So, yeah.
I wasn't truly focused on being the best athlete I could be at the time. I was more worried about what was going on in my own personal life that was impacting my mental health.
I think that after going through my situation and everything that happened back in the early 90s when I played, I think that in modern day we really need to have mental support for student athletes in colleges and universities across the country. I think it's important for them to know that there's somebody there to go to and speak with when they're struggling through any aspect of the game or college life.
My name is Jaden Berman. I'm 20 years old. I play soccer at UNC Asheville. A lot of my friends and I have struggled with mental health issues within the game, whether it be, coaches or just not feeling good enough. Just things like that, really. It's tough.
I feel like we actually had some really good resources at Maryland. We had a nutritionist assigned to our team. We had trainers assigned to our team. We had different resources at the counseling center. We had at the clinic, our team and all the other teams at Maryland had to every couple weeks have drug testing done, because prior to me getting to Maryland, we had Lynn Bias, who had died of a drug overdose on the men's basketball team, and the NCAA and Maryland, as a result, had additional testing for our programs and our athletics department to make sure that something like that never happened again.
I think mental health is important in athletics because if your mental health is off, you can't perform to the best of your ability, and if you're not happy, you can't play at your best.
I think it's of critical importance. So I get to see for our roster of 40 players at this point, not only how mental health is treated differently now, but the impact that it does have on student athletes, and it's significant.
I'm Bree Bidds. I'm a college athlete. It's no secret that mental health has become a bigger and bigger topic in college athletics, and it's making more and more headlines every day. The sad part of this is that there have been a lot of collegiate athlete suicides in the past couple of years, which is very devastating.
Austin Mazonik. I'm 20 years old and I work for athletics. I work game day operations, and I work with athletes. As a student worker, I look up towards many different student athletes because they have to be professional on and off the field, and they have to work consistently to stay in shape and to get a starting spot. One of the people I look up to heavily is Anthony. He's not only a track captain, but he also works with me with student athletics, and he just does as much as he can to make sure game days look good.
My name is Anthony Mason. I am 21 years old. I attend UNC Asheville, and I run track and field. I believe mental health is very important for student athletes, not just because of the fact that we have our time consumed by tons of different things. I mean, I'll use myself as an example. I have practice, I have classes, 5 classes. I also work for athletic administration and departments like that. When you have all that time to be doing constant go, 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 you don't have a lot of time to really take time to reflect on yourself. And I think that's why mental health is such an important thing for student athletes, because we really do need that space and need that time to reflect on ourselves and really see what's going on with us. Take a time to really just sit down. Hey, what's wrong? How can we fix it? What can we do? And Asheville has provided a great space for that.
My name is AJ. I'm 21 years old. I attend UNC Asheville, and I play basketball.
Travis Johnson, 39 years old. I'm a business development consultant for Progressive Insurance, corporate sales, and I played football at Sac State back in 2004-2005.
I myself have struggled with mental health with all the scheduling with class, work, basketball, trying to stay on top of everything.
The question is if I or anyone else I've known struggled with mental health issues. Yes. I think it's really depending on if you look at from a teammate perspective, like ex-teammate, or just non-sports affiliated friends. But I would say yes, they have at varying degrees, and all the way from someone who took their life in high school to folks who just had a hard time transitioning from playing sports into normal civilian life.
I think the biggest thing for me is when I check out of school or check out of just life in general, it builds and builds and builds, and it gets worse over time.
Back then, there was nothing. The services, in terms of resources, there was nothing available that I knew of. We were still kind of building out the athletics program at that time. We voted on really major projects that have helped the program become what it is now, at least for the football program. But of course, the athletic department has seen major changes and gains since then. But nothing in terms of mental health. I'm not even sure if grief counselors were available back then.
My advice would be is to talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be somebody professional, but talk to a friend, a family member, or a cousin.
Mental health is very important for student athletes, but it's not just for performance, but it's for transitioning from 8 hours a day in any serious program. Probably, most days out of the year, you're spending the majority of your time on athletics. So there's a performance side of it, but then it's how do you transition from a major part of your identity being a student athlete to just being out, free in the world to pursue whatever career you have. And that's where I saw a lot of people have struggles. And of course there's, struggles myself, but I knew it's something I had to address proactively.
As far as struggling with mental health in college athletics, this one hits a little personal to me because during the beginning of my senior season and also towards the end of my sophomore season, I was pretty much down in the dumps when it comes to mental health. My sophomore season, I got injured. Both hamstrings were injured and I couldn't compete to the level that I'm supposed to compete at. I was running probably the slowest I've ever run, including high school times. We were able to, luckily, squeeze out some school records that I was a part of, but overall, on a personal note, I just wasn't there mentally. And it was really hard to fight back from that place. So mental health to me is something that is crucial and is necessary for everybody, not even just student athletes, but also for regular students as well.
I do believe mental health is important for student athletes. I feel like they need to have resources that they can call or go see or use if they need it. I actually believed so much that mental health was important that after I taught for a while, after my degree at Maryland, I went back to school at Virginia Tech and got a degree in counseling because I felt like it was such an important issue to be able to support students or athletes or children.
Playing college is to be a successful athlete, whether you walk on or on a full scholarship. To go from that where you have built-in success by being a part of the team to then having none of that and having to find your success or glory in other places is a huge transition.
I mean, I have taught my kids so many lessons through sports, whether it's good or bad. I go back and coach, and I just think of all the opportunities to teach kids just how to be mentally tough and to stay in the game and just kind of just keep your mental aspect sharp is probably 90% of it, honestly. So yeah, hugely important.
I'm CJ Kensel, 20 years old, and I play baseball for Iona University.
My name is Laura Jones. I am faculty member in health and wellness. I'm a faculty member in neuroscience, and I'm the mental health coordinator for our athletics department. I attended a small private liberal arts college called the University of South Swanee in Tennessee for my undergraduate degree. Then I got a master's in psychology, cognitive neuroscience from the University of Oregon. I received a master's in clinical mental health counseling from East Tennessee State University. And then I got my PhD or my doctoral degree in counseling and counselor education from the University of North Carolina, Greensboro.
My name's Emma Kennett, I'm 20. I go to UNC Asheville and I'm a sophomore on the cross country and track team.
So when I first started teaching here, one of the courses I was teaching was a basic mental and emotional health course. and I would routinely have athletes in that class. And they would come up to me and say things like, you really need to talk about this down in athletics, or could you come and talk with my team about this in athletics? And so I started better understanding the role of mental health in athletics through my students and through the student athletes in my courses. And the reason that ultimately I decided to go and talk to Athletic Director Cohn about the possibility of implementing this work in athletics was having some of my male athletes coming to my office, getting tearful about some of their experiences that they were having, saying things like, I just don't know who else I can talk to about this, and just voicing that they wanted a safe space or wanted space in general where they could acknowledge how they were struggling. And so just to see the level of investment, the level of passion that student athletes had for this work, I got really excited about it. Went and spoke with Athletic Director Cohn, and she was supportive from day one. Said, if you want to do this work, come do it. And ever since that moment, this program has been driven by athletes.
Mental health is so important for student athletes because poor mental health puts you at risk of burnout and disengagement. College athletics train every day for hours on end, and the most important thing is staying positive and excited about the game you love so you can go out there and perform when the time comes.
Making this program come alive, and so a lot of the initial work that I was doing with athletes was around providing education just to athletes, helping athletes get connected to mental health resources both on and off campus. And then from there it grew to providing education to coaches and doing trainings with coaches and athletic staff and administration, because I could do and we could do all of the education in the world with athletes, but if we are then sending those athletes back out into a culture and a community where they are not feeling that wider support, it's really not a system that is sustainable.
You know, I've definitely known a good amount of athletes, friends who have struggled with mental health, myself included. You know, I think it is definitely something everyone struggles with in some point, and I think athletes, you know, it's not just like perfect every day for us. It might seem that way. It might seem like, you know, where we have busy schedules to kind of keep us distracted all day, which sometimes that is the case. Sometimes I go through the day and I feel like I didn't even live it, you know, it just happened. And I don't really have time to think. But then there are some days when it's a little bit slower and you just kind of sit and reflect, and some days are harder than others. And you know, I try to use my sport as an outlet as much as possible, but I feel like sometimes that is the reason for some of my mental health issues, where they stem from, for sure.
It was so eye-opening to me to, you know, to better understand the world of student athletes, understand how, statistically speaking, they struggle more than their non-athlete peers, which I was not at all aware of before I started doing this work. And I think coming from that perspective, having held some of the same stigmas around the idea that student athletes are strong and tough and they don't struggle as much, like I had to break down that in my own perception of student athletes as well when I started doing this work. And so part of that and hearing their stories makes me even more passionate about sharing those stories broadly.
At the end of the day, it's just you with yourself, and it's really important just to make time for yourself that doesn't involve school or sports, and find something, different hobby that's just, you know, for you, and that something you can rely on at the end of the day if nothing else went right, that there's something that you can rely on. And that's usually what I do when I'm not doing the best mentally.